And she joins us now from Nairobi via Skype. Sarah, a very good afternoon to you. I think it's fair to say the world at large is awaiting this day. The question is, will it really be signed, the peace accord, today?
Good afternoon, Alicia. Indeed, the world is watching, and as the international community has been saying over the last few days, time is running out for Salva Kiir. And so he called the regional leaders from East Africa yesterday evening and announced that he will be signing the deal. The leaders arrived there this morning and they have been in meetings, and we are expecting that any time now he will sign the deal. Indeed, he has no choice because he called them and he said that he would be signing. And it is being signed in Juba, unlike the early agreement which Machar signed, which was signed in Addis Ababa, which has been the capital of the talks.
Sarah, look, President Kiir has been seen as the one, of course, hindering this process. But does he, in fact, have any point when he says that the proposed measures would not be the solution to the problems in South Sudan?
Well, the reason he probably says that is because he is disagreeing to some of the clauses. Take, for example, he's disagreeing to the clause that the capital Juba should be demilitarized. He's also not happy with the rebels getting what is being called the lion's share of the seats being allocated under the transitional government. However, when you speak to the international community, when you speak to analysts, and even President Kenyatta before he left Kenya to go for that meeting, he said that indeed this will be the beginning of ending the conflict in South Sudan, because the agreement says that there should be a permanent ceasefire within 72 hours of signing that deal.
Which brings me to my next point, Sarah, because we know in the history of non-compliance to these peace deals, if it is signed today, how do you think it will impact the actual implementation of the agreement? Won't that be even harder to materialize?
Well, according to the agreement, there's also going to be what they're calling a monitoring and evaluation committee, which is made up of countries from the East African region and also what they call the Troika. So indeed, they are planning to make sure that they follow through to see that this is not like the other 7 ceasefire agreements that have been signed and defaulted or not followed through, and fighting begins immediately after they're signed or within days of signing. So they're hoping that the Monitoring and Evaluation Committee will be able to bring sanity this time round.
Sarah, look, let's speculate a little bit on the severity of the situation on the ground. What would happen to a country like South Sudan if those sanctions were in fact imposed? I mean, South Sudan is still in its earlier stages of development.
Yes, and the country is actually almost bankrupt. The government does not have enough money to pay civil servants because the oil pipelines have been shut for some time now. And even the production that they're doing of oil is not enough. People are hungry. There's not enough food. And a lot of them are now depending on international community. They're depending on the World Food Program to provide food. They're also depending on trade from outside to be able to keep the country running. So sanctions at this time would actually sound a death knell for the world's youngest nation.
And lastly, Sarah, what would compliance to this deal from both sides be? To the South Sudanese people that we know have been displaced by the 20-month civil war, could this be their final call to come back home and rebuild what was lost, Sarah?
Well, they may not say that they will come into the country immediately, but what it does is that it gives a sense of confidence and a sense of hope for a country that a lot of people have said is in despair and hopelessness. So what this would do is that if within 72 hours there is a ceasefire and people start fighting, it means then that investors would start coming to the country. Those who had fled would gradually probably begin coming into the country. But the most important thing here is that if fighting stops, then there is confidence, and those investors who had left can come back and the country can start, looking like a country again.
Thank you so much for that. That's Sarah Kimani joining us on Skype today. And we just spoke about the peace deal that is to be signed by the President Salva Kiir of South Sudan. His former deputy, Riek Machar, had already long signed the accord. Now, today is D-Day, or the UN is imposing sanctions on the small nation.